you have, then you can go in and pay the bill yourself. But until that point, no, I don't recommend it because there's too many original signatures that need to be done. And if say one of your both siblings are on there and one moves to Vancouver in 3 years, and then your parents or whatever pass away in 5, you've got to, it's just not going to work. So I always say that one's good. Yeah.
So Wendy, if there's you're gonna say the 5% that you're talking about, is that the usual price of a lawyer, or what if it's a more complicated estate? Would it be more than 5%?
Well, if it was 5% is usually the basic, either for the executor, if the lawyers of the executor, whoever is the executor, it's usually up to 5%. Some family members won't take it, but they are entitled to it as long as it says so in the will. So, but when it comes to lawyers with probate fees, that's all extra disbursements. So to have your, if they own any property, it all has to go through probate. Then you have to do a valuation on your property, and then you have to get it, into the court system. And believe you me, they like to charge their fees. So it's, there's so many disbursements on top of that as well.
So that 5%, sorry,
yeah,
that 5% is both for the lawyer and the executor.
No.
Okay, so
No.
the lawyer gets their fee.
Yes. Yes, the 5 and I'm just saying that most wills have a 5% executor's fee. You don't have to have it in there, but to get somebody to do it, you may not get somebody to do it. But the lawyer's fees, you have to go to a lawyer to do probate. I mean, you don't have to. As long as you know how the court system works, you can do it yourself. It is a lot, it's time consuming, for somebody that's not familiar with the process. Then the lawyer has to charge for his time on top of that, plus the probate fees with the government charges.
Question I had. That just blew it out of my head.
I'll jump in. So 5% could be a lot, or it could be
It's
a little.
Well, it's 5% of the whole estate.
Right.
So
Could be a huge variation. Peggy?
Yeah.
Peggy, question.
Yeah, so as you were saying, it's best to have one executor. Now, can you put so one executor, but then another executor in the case that the first one can't?
yeah, you do an alternate. Yeah.
You can have it so they're not both doing it, but in the case that the first one can't do it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Is it common to have a flat fee instead of a percentage?
You can, as long as you stipulate in the will. It's whatever your wishes are, you stipulate it right in the will, and the executor has to go by what is in the will. The only thing that they don't have to go by is your funeral. So that's only a wish. And I just found this out because this parent wanted to be buried, and the family said, no, we're not paying for that. They want her cremated because they want, this is what happens.
We just want the money.
Yeah, exactly. This is what happens in reality. So so it's only your wishes for funeral arrangements, cremation. It's up to the executor to step in and say, no, her wishes were to be buried, but apparently it's not governed by law.
If I can make a point in that regard, sometimes some people don't have enough to keep their wish. And the people who inherit, there's no law that says that they should inherit debt.
Yes.
So just because somebody wishes something, I just want to take the side of or
Yes.
Okay.
And then if you don't have a will, and somebody steps up and say the daughter, well, she's the next of kin, that's a whole other process. And then you have to make sure and somebody approached me actually last week about this, the next of kin has to take on all the debt. So if they have any outstanding Visa cards, this particular woman, her father just had 2 cars and had some visas and stuff. And I said, well, don't step up to say you're the next of kin, because you're gonna have to pay all that. So just let it go. The family services or whatever were burying him. And just don't claim it because she over 2 cars that probably weren't really worth anything by the sounds of it. So it wasn't worth it for her to step up unless there was property involved or.
Okay, I think we need to move on now. But I think that there's an important lesson here because, I mean, I thought I knew something about wills, but we had a conversation the other day. And that is that if you are creating a will, and there's any chance that your children are gonna end up worse, like in terms of the relationships between them, then it's better to outsource it to somebody else. Because these things are so sensitive. I know when my mother passed, her biggest wish was that my sisters and I would get along. One of my siblings took care of the executor duties. There was enough trust in there, but if you don't have that, it's better to outsource it. And I know you, I don't know Julia Bradley, but I trust you. So, and much success also with your upcoming real estate
Thank you.
career. So that's all very exciting.
Yeah, it is.
And I guess everybody got some flyers on the chairs and the people who are watching online, we will make sure that you get video of the parts that you missed and also the contact information for all of the guests. So next, I'd like to invite Andrew Brennan to come on up from Palm Tree Capital. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. All right, so Andrew lives locally here for part of the year in Wasaga Beach. I met you through our deputy mayor, Tanya Snell.
Yeah.
And Andrew and the investors that he does joint ventures with have an amazing portfolio comprised of about 200 million in real estate. That's 200 million in real estate and 1,000 doors.
Yeah. Roughly.
So that's an amazing accomplishment. And I think most of your properties are in Hamilton and Kingston. Is that correct?
No, actually, a lot of them are in, a lot of the smaller ones are in Simcoe County.
Okay.
And then we have some apartment buildings. We do have Hamilton, but a lot of them are along the 401 corridor east of the GTA.
Okay, so how do you decide where to buy and what are you looking to buy? I mean, I know at one point you were doing small renovations, maybe adding a basement, and that's evolved into multifamily. So what are some of your criteria?
Okay, so actually what I used to do was I used to buy like a lot of single family homes in the Simcoe County area and I would add basement apartments. And I did like 50 in 3 years and that'll really kill you. That'll wear you out, right? And so then I decided that I had some logistics problems with having so many small properties. So we transitioned to apartment buildings. But now basically what we do is we look to buy apartment buildings that would say be like 12 or more units. And we focus on under market rents, right? So along the 401 corridor.
Right.
Right. And we look to drive up the rents and increase value for our investors. Right.
So one thing that some people may not know about multifamily real estate is the price of the property is usually dependent on the rent, right?
Yes, it's very similar to if you were like buying a business where you might pay a multiple of the, say, gross or net income.
Right.
Where in real estate apartment building, including commercial, plazas, stuff like that, you pay basically a capitalization rate based on the net operating income. So if you pay a tenant to leave, say, $500 rent increase,
Right.
depending on the area, like if Toronto, you could actually drive the building value up close to 200,000. In the areas we do, it's usually about 125,000.
Right.
And so that's our strategy, right?
Right.
And we could have the exact same apartment building side by side, same units, and one could have rent roll of 10 grand and one could have a rent roll of 20 grand. And one building would be 3 times worth the other, even though they're exactly the same.
Right. So it's all about that rent roll.
Yeah, yeah. And you can't really do that in the smaller stuff. You have a duplex or a fourplex, they just value it, appraise it, compare it to the one down the street, right?
Right.
So we have less control doing small.
Right. And I was reading on one of your case studies, and we've got some slides here.
Oh, yeah.
Which we can, of course, refer to, how you bought one property even using some, and did some renovations using private money, but eventually took that out with CMHC insured. And I think
Yeah.
that's another point
Yeah.
about how if you can keep your expenses down, it's about that operating income that also drives your value.
Yeah, like, we don't do, large renovations. We focus on just buying stuff that would already be, say, a B or C building. And we just do minor renovations as units turnover, right?
Mhm.
But what we do is we plan to do some turnover, and we then go back to the bank, pull all the money out, keep the apartment building, and hopefully, often we do get all the money back out, so we have infinite return going forward. Right? And so that's the great strategy, and that's the success that I'm allowed, allows me to offer great returns to private individuals.
Right, and I think that when you take some of that equity out, you give that back to the investors.
We get it all back, and
So
they
they-
usually just recycle it into the
So,
next
so they
project.
get their capital back often within a few years.
We try for 3 to 5 years, right? Just depending, like, if you have, say, a 40-unit apartment building, you don't necessarily want to take everybody out.
Mhm.
And our strategy is we don't do what's popular in the news with reno evictions. Like, we don't get a building permit saying that you have to leave because we're moving the bathroom. We go to people that are often good tenants and say, hey, you know what, your rent's really low. How about we give you 5, 10, 15, $20,000 to leave? Come to a mutual agreement, right? So there's no disputes or anything like that. And so sometimes it takes time to work your way through those.
Right.
But that's why sometimes it takes 3 to 5 years to
Right.
to do that.
Well, I mean, it sounds pretty exciting. Of course, I'm not on commission,
Yeah.
right? And I can't endorse the product because I'm a dealing representative and the product is not on my company's shelf. So that would be a conflict. But I'm familiar with the model, and it seems like you've got a very good thing going. So we've got a few slides if you wanted to
I will,
talk to.
I will say, it's not exciting. Your real estate, no investment should be exciting.
Right.
There's no ups and downs with the stock market. There's no phone calls from
Right.
tenants, stuff like that.
Right.
But no, basically what we do is we bought this building, I think it was August of 2021, right? 32 units.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that's right.
this is how we kind of track our progress and stuff like that, right? And when we bought it, the rent roll was like $33,000, right? So the building was worth a certain amount of money based on that. And now, so we're at 41,000, right?
Mhm.
So 12 months ago, we were at 39, then we had a small increase to 40, and now we're at 41. Well, for every $100 per month we increase the building value, that is a $25,000 value increase,
Right.
right? So imagine we've increased the building value the monthly rent by 8,000 per month.
Mhm.
What does that relate to, and how much the building's gone up?
That $2 million.
A couple $1 million,
$2 million
right?
increase in
Right.
value.
So,
So you bought a building for 5.2
Yeah,
and you've increased the value by $2 million.
a couple $1 million. And I know that we raised 1.5 million for this project,
Right,
right? So we haven't refinanced it yet, but we're getting close, right?
right.
And
So the investors have practically doubled their money.
on paper, yes, they've more than doubled their money, right? When you look at, say, not only the value increase, but you're probably paying down $100,000 a year in
Right.
mortgage reduction.
Right.
Right.
So do you guys know why I said that? They doubled their money. Because the building's $5.2 million, but down payment, cash was 1.5. You said 1.5?
It was, I think it was 1.5. That includes like down payment, land transfer.
Okay,
all
so
that
they
money
put in
aside for
1.5
renovations.
million in cash. The value of the building goes up by $2 million, so you practically doubled your money because the delta, the other part is financing.
Like, basically, if you went to the bank today and let's say you got 75% loan to value, well, 75% of 2 million is 1.5,
Mhm.
right? So we would then get the money back, and I think we have 6 investors on this property. They would all retain their ownership, stuff like that. It's not like, when you buy a stock and you want to cash out, you no longer own the stock,
Right.
right? But for us, you return your money, get your money returned, you're not actually out of the investment,
Right.
right? And that's why we can get such great ROIs, return on investment, for individuals over so many years, right?
Right. Right. Are there any questions for Andrew? Yes, Wendy.
I mean, the rent is low.
Hmm.
Because they've been there for 20 years,
Yeah.
to say, right? So the market rent's gone on, say, tripled. You're gonna go sell that property. Do they have to actually go by the rent that's being paid now, or they can say that, no, this is what you can get going for the market value?
When you say they, as in like,
The buyer.
The tenant,
okay, so we're not talking compensating the tenant to leave, we're talking about what, so. If I was buying a house, a apartment building, I would only take into account today's actual rent. Now, I will say that we do pay a premium for under market rents, and like I teach people how to buy apartment buildings and stuff like that, and basically what I teach them is do not overpay by more than 30% of the potential lift. So if I think I can make $1 million and the building's worth $1 million, I may pay up to 1.3 million. Okay, but, and I'll be honest, anytime a realtor sends me something that doesn't have realistic numbers, or they use market rent for a tenant that's still in there, I, for lack of a better word, lose respect for that realtor.
I think it's also worth mentioning that these properties cash flow from the beginning, right? Because they're not development projects. I mean, I know there's some developers out there, they're
Yeah.
building from scratch
Yeah.
and offering high returns. But if you don't have cash flow in that property from day one, that increases your risk considerably, right?
Basically, when you get a traditional mortgage, whether it be CMHC insured or just through a regular bank, that's not say a construction project, even you can have a construction loan on an existing building. They will make you have a certain debt coverage ratio of usually like 1.2 to 1.3. So that means you're having 20 or 30% above what your actual expenses are. Right, so that usually helps, right? And I mean, we don't necessarily pay cash flow day one. I tell people these are wealth growing investments, not necessarily collect, a few $100 per month.
Right.
In, cash flow. But going back to the example, if I raised, 1.5 million, I gave everybody, let's say I paid out $5,000 a month, they're probably more excited about the $2 million value increase than, getting their share of $5,000 per month, right?
Right.
So.
Right, all right, very good. So there's other slides. I don't know if there's anything else here or any other
Contact
questions.
info.
Here was the project.
Yeah,
This is Aurelia.
Yeah, so last Friday, I had the benefit of going to meet a couple of my investors for lunch and pay them out their remaining funds for a project, right? We bought this one a couple of years ago, and it was like just under 1.2, and it was worth like 2.2 after like 3.5 years, 4 years.
So they get their money back, but they still own
They have the exact same ownership.
share of the building.
Yeah. So now they have infinite return.
So on a project like this, let's say this was $1 million purchase. I guess now your typical purchases, it would be higher than this now.
Yeah, they're usually say 2 million to the largest one we did was, I think, was 36 million.
Okay, so let's pick, say, $5 million purchase. You'd be looking to raise, what, about 25% of that from investors? How many investors would you normally bring in, and what sort of investment size would you be looking for from an investor?
Okay, so we usually do something like we won't give less than, or allow an investor to take less than 5% ownership. But usually we try and bring on, say, 5 investors at like 10% each. Right. And then, so I don't get paid, like I don't take asset management fees, or I don't get, a fee for finding a property or buying anything like that. So I only get paid if the investors get paid. And I don't get any equity until all the investors get their money out. So I get paid by ownership of the building. Okay,
Right.
so we split the ownership percentage with the investors, and we don't necessarily have to have the investors take the same exact amount. So it's prorated based on their investment. But anywhere from 1 to, I think the most we've had is like 8 investors, right?
Right,
Okay. Particular property. Right?
A handful of investors. Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you talk about infinite return, so you pay out the original capital. So now, how do you, on an ongoing basis, how do you determine how they can take monetary benefit periodically from that building? Or if they want to exit ownership to only one investor, do you take that on yourself, or they go and sell shares of their building?
Okay, so a couple questions there. So after they get all their money back, we may refinance again in the future. Okay, I have some smaller properties that I've refinanced, I've refinanced my personal home 3 times, right? Or we'll do, say, cash flow, right? What happens is let's say you're getting cash flow and then you refinance, obviously, you know, all things being the same, interest rates the same, your mortgage cost goes up. So your cash flow goes down. So, but that's okay, because nobody has any more money into it. So we do that. If someone wanted to sell their shares, they could. No, I'll be honest, it's not like it's easy, like selling McDonald's shares in the stock market. I have yet to have anybody come to me and say, I want to sell my shares, right? But in an ideal world, and not to be greedy or whatever, I would love for everybody to sell me their shares at refinance time. Because I probably have some money from the bank that I can buy their shares from them, right? But it's yet to happen.
Okay,
So if I understand what I'm hearing here, for somebody who wants to invest in a property, can't afford to invest on their own, even just a home. This is where you work, this would be your field houses and people with not enough money to buy a house or something like that. That had a couple of $100,000, they could give it to you and invest in the property along with those other four people you were talking about. And there's some.
Yeah, like, I mean, if someone had a couple $100,000, they could probably buy their own house. But what we do is we offer very good returns for hands off, right? And real estate investing, right? You know, I've been doing this for 15 plus years, right? And, you know, I have some investors that, you know, they actually have some investors that hired me to be their coach. And they're like, oh, you can just get better returns than I can, and probably twice as good. So I'll just take a share, right? Most people, they, you know, if you look on MLS for an apartment building, it's usually dogs, everybody's passed over, things like that. They don't have, the ins and outs of how to get the best mortgage, right? So, you know, sometimes people are shy away from, you know, say joint ownership, right? But for some people, it's a great fit, right? If they just want a peace of mind and, you know, go hands off and not worry about it.
okay, last question, Graham, and then we need to move on.
Okay, what were you saying, your minimum investment is now, and can it be registered in, somehow registered?
No, we don't do registered funds. We're not, you know, like, we're not a REIT or a MIC, at least at this point, we haven't bothered. Usually the minimum is usually around 100,000, right? Just depends on the project. Like I said earlier, be 5%. So we occasionally, I think we did one not too long ago. I think it was 91,000. That was probably the lowest in the last couple of years, right? Now we're doing one that's like 150,000, right? So.
Okay, very good. Andrew, thanks.
Thank you
very
so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, very much appreciated. There's Andrew's contact information. I'm sure he's got some business cards, if you want to, pass up business cards or whatever. Okay, so, I'm gonna try and keep my, presentation down to 5 minutes, okay, because, you've all been very patient. We're a little behind schedule because of technical problem. So, first of all, reasons to take equity out of your property. I mean, I call the piece how to take equity out of your property. First, I should talk about why you might want to do that. First of all, if you have equity in property, you're retired, you have a lower income, then you may need to access that equity. I'm gonna also talk a little bit about how equity has grown in properties, because I know people are very nervous about the idea of taking out equity out of the property. And for good reason, you do not want to be wasteful about it, but there are good reasons to consider it when it's necessary. So funding your retirement is one, paying off higher interest credit cards or other debts is another, home repairs, renovations. You know, you see times people have all kinds of equity in their house, maybe no mortgage. The house needs work. It could be dangerous. And as you get older, you may need some things, you may need the house retrofitted for you if you know you're in a position where you have a mobility issue or something. So that's another reason. Education for yourself or maybe for a child or family member. Help an adult child purchase the property. This is a great one. You've got equity, you can convince your kids to move out from Toronto up here to the beach. Help them out. They'll save a fortune on the property. Who can afford a house in Toronto? So that's another good travel. You know, you got to live, folks, right? You got to live, you got to enjoy your life. You've worked hard for many years. To invest, if you have a business or something that you want to invest in, pay property taxes. You know, I wanted to mention this because my grandfather had a saying once. He said, you know, somebody crying with a loaf of bread under their arm. property taxes relative to the value of your house and relative to the way house prices have increased, even over the last 5 or 10 years, it's a very, very small thing. Obviously, we want to make sure that our council who are making decisions are being prudent. I believe they are making careful decisions. So beyond that, it's like, you know, you do what you got to do. And so there's different ways to take equity out of your property. First of all, is traditional mortgage, where you qualify based on income and credit if you have the income to support that. You might be self-employed. I work with a lot of self-employed borrowers. Sometimes self-employed borrowers are not reporting a lot of income because they're either keeping their money in their company or they may be writing off everything under the sun. I don't work for Revenue Canada. The lenders that I work with, they just want to make sure that you can service the debt. So what they'll look at for self-employed borrowers is often they'll look at bank statements. They just want to see that your cash flow. They're not going to ask for tax returns because tax returns are often not a good indication of your ability to service the debt. They're designed often, sometimes, especially if you're self-employed, with minimizing your taxes. Net worth mortgages. Net worth mortgage is one where maybe you have diminished income, but you have some liquid assets. You don't necessarily want to use all your liquid assets to live, but the lender will consider those if, right? So they won't ask you to cash them. They'll just want to know that you've got a fallback. And the last thing is the reverse mortgage, which is a mortgage where you don't have to make payments at all. And some people might say, oh my goodness, how could I take a mortgage and not make payments? All the equity in my house is going to disappear. Well, so I have a little chart here, which is a little bit small, and this is my last slide, but you can take a photo or I can share it with you later if you want to see. But essentially, I have two things that I want to convey. The first is that this is Wasaga Beach home prices. This is what I was able to find online. 2014, average price of a home, $300,000. Current price of a home, 2023. This is 9 years later. Average price is $724,000. So people have done well, and this is not just Wasaga Beach. This is, you know, pretty much Canada wide, I would say. And so there's equity there for sure. Now, so what happens if you were to do a reverse mortgage for $100,000? What would it look like if we look 15 years out and you said, well, what's going to happen to all of my equity? Is it going to disappear? Well, so this chart shows you what will happen. There's certain assumptions built in, but if we took 724 as your current value, because that's the average house right now in Wasaga Beach, current value 724, and we assume a 3% increase in value per year. I will tell you that if anybody here is in real estate or knows real estate, I think that probably if we look back over the last 30 or 50 years, on average, real estate goes up about 6% per year. And I don't think that's going to be getting any less because there's 500,000 new people coming in to Canada every year. And about half of those are landing in the GTA, and then they move out to the outlying areas. And that's one of the key things that keeps the demand up. So if you assume conservatively 3% per year, your house is going to be worth in 15 years, $1.1 million. That's a conservative 3% per year, okay? Now, what about your mortgage? If you took out a reverse mortgage and never made a single payment on that mortgage in 15 years, you would owe $311,000. And there's certain assumptions in there about the mortgage rate that you're paying. And right now, the rates are high. So I believe that it will actually be considerably less than $311,000 is what you're going to be owing in 15 years. Okay. So now what's your equity? Your current equity, even today, if you took the $100,000 loan today, your current equity is $624,000. Your equity at the end of 15 years is is over $800,000. So your equity continues to grow despite the fact that you have taken $100,000 out of your property. Now, if you don't need $100,000, maybe you just need $1,000 or $1,500 a month to help support you can take income like that out of your property. You don't have to take a big check. You can take income like that. So those are some of the reasons to take equity out of your property, and those are some of the different ways you can take equity out of your property. Do we have any questions before we bring up the mayor, who's been waiting very patiently? Yes.
Are there
Rob.
tax implications for taking that 1,500?
No, there's no tax. It's tax free.
It's your money.
Yeah, you're taking your money out of your houses. No taxes on
You're
it.
doing it on pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a principal residence, so you wouldn't be paying tax on that anyway. I mean, I'm not going to count it. I'm not going to get into that. I did want to mention a few people that are in the room. We have some members from the Wasaga Society for the Arts who are here and who who we've arranged to use this space. Unfortunately, there's no pictures on the wall today. I don't know. But anyway, we have Brian Johnson is here and from the Wasaga Society for the Arts, and Michael is here. Michael, sorry, what's your last name again?
Jared.
Michael Jarrett is here. He's also on the board of the Wasaga Society for the Arts. I want to mention my good friend Jerry Hogenhout, who has done many broadcasts with me over the past. He's my accountant, and we do a lot of things talking about investments. In a couple of months, we will be doing a session on apartment REITs and taxes and different things. That'll be in a couple of months. I also want to thank my wife, who's the catering manager. Yeah, yeah, and I hope I didn't miss anybody. Lots of good friends and supporters. So thank you all for coming. Is there one more question before we bring up the mayor on the mortgages? You all know where to reach me. Here's my business cards. I can also share these slides with you if you're interested, but more importantly, I can help you work up a scenario on your property if you want to see because it's age dependent, right? The amount of money you can take out of it if it's a reverse mortgage. But again, lots of different options depending on your situation. That 19 years experience arranging mortgages. So don't hesitate to give me a shout. Mr. Mayor, would you please join us? Thank you very much.
David, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
It's okay to set this here?
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, this piano doesn't actually function. So, but it's been great for around the piano for our little talk show here. It's been really great for that. So
Great.
yeah, excellent. So appreciate you being here now. So you've been in power, or as the mayor, but it's not your first time since October. And one thing I can see is a lot of involvement in the community. You and all the councillors, Joe Belanger is here. We've had Ellen Timms here, was on our first broadcast that we did. We had Sasha. Of course, we have Tanya, our mayor. Tanya Snell, our deputy mayor is here, but tonight she's not here in that capacity. She's here from the capacity of the real estate Palm Tree Capital, right? So love that. And also the event that you had a few weeks ago over at the Recplex, explaining the vision. I mean, it's almost redundant because you guys are out there so much, but still glad you're here. I'm sure that some people have questions. So, but let's start with what is hot. One thing that came up, and I made a note of this in my book, 7 to 15 years, long time horizon. So obviously the question is, what can we do in the meantime? And I know that's number one on your list. Wasaga Beach is ready for summer. Beach One updates, new entertainment. Tell us what's happening, if you would, please.
Sure. And again, thank you, David, for having me. And thanks, folks, for coming out. And for those that are online, thank you for joining us. And I'm looking forward to questions. So the one thing I want to make clear, and you use the words in power. And thank you very much. I don't like the words in power because it's not about power. It's about working with the community It's about working with council and working with the amazing staff we have at the town of Wasaga Beach to make good things happen, to make Wasaga Beach a better place to live, work, learn, and play. And I can tell you, we got the best of the best when it comes to our staff. We've got a great council this time around who is dedicated to making sure that we're moving the town forward. So it is not the Brian Smith show. It's not about Brian Smith. It is a concerted effort by myself, the rest of council, 170 staff, and a lot of great folks in the municipality. So it really is a team effort. So it is is it a 7 to 15 year? Is it a 3 to 10 year or 15 year? Quite frankly, we really don't know. But what we do know is this: it's time to get started. And I'm very happy and proud to say my last term as mayor, that we had set that in motion and we were ready to go, and all that had to be done was an agreement signed and moved forward. And we've just lost the best 4 years of investment and real estate we'll ever see in our lifetime. And it's interesting to hear, in 2023 average home price, $730,000. I was speaking to a realtor today and a good friend of mine, as of the end of April, the average home sale this year, about 68 of those, the average home price is about 820,000. So we continue to go in the right direction. And why? Because Wasaga Beach is a great place to live. Wasaga Beach has a lot to offer. We're close to so many amenities, including the city of Toronto, but we have the longest freshwater beach in the world. So what do we need to do? What is this council, what were we elected to do, and what are we working hard at doing? And that's getting the downtown master plan pulled back together, getting the RFP completed, which will be completed by the 3 proponents, all of who have been vetted already, and are very capable to do this, either alone or together or in a combination thereof. And council is completely wide open and open-minded to look at whatever those developers think is best for them in the town of Wasaga Beach. Keeping in mind, I am confident that this council is always going to be doing what is best for you, the taxpayer. We aren't going to make any deals that shorts you, the taxpayer, or we're not going to be making any deals and overpaying or doing things that isn't in the best interest of this municipality. And so those RFPs are out. They've all picked up a package. They will all have returned those by the end of June. That's the deadline. And at that time, a committee will be put together to look at those proposals. Some decisions will be made at a very high level. And then we'll get back out, as we did about 2 months ago, to the municipality. We'll have another meeting at the Recplex, and we'll give you folks everything that we have, and we'll start to then get your thoughts and your ideas. Now, keep in mind, we're never going to make everybody happy. But whether we do or we don't, really at this point is irrelevant. What's relevant and what's important is that we move our community forward. I hear questions all the time from the citizens in Wasaga Beach. Why don't we have what Collingwood has? Why don't we have what Midland, Barrie, Penetang, Thornbury, Meaford, you name it, has? And it's quite simple. We're much younger. Next year we'll be 50 years old as a municipality that has been incorporated to a town. We're older than that, clearly, but we've always been a beach town. We've never developed a main street. Many councils have thought about it and have not come to a decision. My last council and this council have been very clear. Main Street today is called Main Street for a reason. And it's time to develop that and to create a main street that is vibrant, that has shops and services, so as that our full-time residents can enjoy that more than anybody. And I'm a big believer that if our full-time residents like what we do, so will all the visitors. And then, of course, redevelop our world-class beachfront. And that's going to be, it's a challenging at best, a challenging thing to do, but we believe we're on the right track. We believe we've got the right forethought as to what's required there. We've listened to the people, both in my last term of council, which all of these council members were around for, and this term of council. And so we'll get them back in, we'll get back out to the public. I can promise you one thing, this council will be 100% open, transparent. You might not like what we tell you, but I promise you it's going to be the truth.
Okay, no, thank you for that. Now, Wasaga Beach has been growing very quickly, and I think that has the potential to continue. Do we have the infrastructure in place, roads, sewers, whatever's required to support that growth? What plan do we have?
Yeah, so the good news about Wasaga Beach is that we have been blessed with many, many councils over the years who have either put us in or kept us in a very good financial position. Every council has done more work on our infrastructure. Our water and sewer systems are relatively young compared to most communities. We're about 35 years old. We're only at 50 to 53% of our capacity, both on water and wastewater. So that puts us in a real unique and great situation. We look at our neighboring friends in Collingwood. They're having to now work on that aging system and work on having more water. Our friends in Clearview now have the wells, but don't have the funding it takes to get them to get the water into town. And so that's a challenge. They'll get there. And they're also growing, and they're great communities. We don't have that issue. We've got a lot of capacity. And so from a water, wastewater, utility standpoint, we're good. Does our hydro need some work and some additions? Yes, we're kind of at or close to our limits on capacity. And so is there going to need investment in hydro? Absolutely. But we've got the right team at hydro. We've got the right board members in place. And I'm sure that working with the town will do what is best and what is right to get that there. From a transportation standpoint, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to take my phone out because a longtime friend of mine, Mike Miller, who many of you may know from Facebook, he's often posting pictures and history on Wasaga Beach. And he posted one a few weeks back that I thought was important to take off and put on my phone. Because it really answers a question that a lot of people bring up, and that is traffic. And of course, being born and raised in Wasaga Beach, I can tell you that we really, to this day, no matter how busy it might feel, don't know what traffic is. I remember as a kid where the OPP, 7 officers full-time in the winter, and then for some reason, I can't pull it up here, but I'll share it. I'll get it shared somehow. But it's a picture. If you go on Facebook and look at Mike's page of 1908 in Wasaga Beach, when the bridge was first built, the Main Street Bridge originally, and it's bumper to bumper. It is jammed across that bridge and around the corner with cars as tight as you can be. That was traffic, and that was a problem. Do we have some congestion once in a while on a great long busy weekend? We do. But folks, what a great problem to have for a community that's trying to move forward, that's trying to bring more services and build a better community for our full-time citizens and the residents the visitors who visit us. And quite frankly, are a lot of our bread and butter here. I invite anyone who doesn't like traffic to go to the stores that they shop at today, whether it be for groceries, for food or clothing, for whatever the case may be, and ask those business owners if they need that summertime business and congestion, and everyone will tell you absolutely without it would be doomed. So as a kid, I remember the OPP 7 officers in the winter, 200 in the summer. They'd go and block every entrance into town. If you couldn't show your driver's license or a receipt from your hotel that you had a room, you couldn't come into town. And then a lot of people who are here today remember back in the mid 80s to late 80s where they would shut off Beach Drive. Oh, it was so busy they closed Beach Drive. That's not traffic. So what are we doing from an infrastructure standpoint? We already have in place and based on other levels of government helping us fund it, because I can tell you that this council is intent on having other levels of government help us. No more are we going to foot a bill on a $60 million building and place that solely on you. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 is the way it is and should be. We're the only municipality in the province who hasn't received alternate funding for this type of building. So we'll do that. It's in place to now take it from Veterans Way to Blueberry Trails. And as soon as we have that funding, it's probably going to be in the next hopefully 2 to 3 years, we're hoping, we'll start that process and we'll get that road expanded down to Blueberry. The next phase of that, or the next phase for Wasaga Beach will then be from the 45th Street to Beechwood and to widen that section of road. And then, of course, we'll look at taking Blueberry trails through to the other end of Main Street. So we're working on that. Mosley Street is something that we're looking at. It's much more complicated. It's thin. There's a lot of buildings and homes and whatnot closer to the street. But I can guarantee you that we're looking at these things all the time because we understand as we move forward that we're going to need better ways to move traffic. What I can tell you is this, David, I drive through this municipality from one end to the other almost every day. And even in the summer, other than the speed limit being 50, it doesn't ever take me too long to get to the other end, other than the odd, real busy, hot summer weekend. And if you live here, you'll understand that's part of life here. If you've moved here because you thought it was a quiet, little sleepy community, you should have done more homework. It is what it is. I mean, we all came here because we love this community. We fell in love with it because of all of the great things it has to offer. But now, once we're here, a lot of us don't want anyone else to come, and we don't want any change. Two things we all hate: change in the way things are. And what we know is that we stay the way we are. If we stay the way we are, we die.
That's
Or we
for sure.
become irrelevant. We have to change and move forward.
Well, I was casually speaking with Joe last summer, and I don't know, Joe, is this a Joe Belanger, of course, was this something you saw in another city somewhere where the parking was away from the beach and there was a shuttle to and from the beach? Is that something that we could and should consider in this town? Because I remember a number of years ago, it's the last couple of years, I don't remember it being so bad, but I remember back maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago when I used to come here and you tried to get out of the downtown area 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, it was insane, right?
There's the picture of 1908.
Okay, right.
So that's traffic in 1908.
Did he send it to you?
He did. I have it.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Joe. Yeah, just to clarify Dave's comments is that the redevelopment of the beachfront and Main Street will eliminate a portion of the existing surface parking. So there has to be a plan in place of how we will handle the required parking, whether it be a parking structure, whether it be a shuttle or, you know, and I'm sure the mayor can expand on other ideas.
Absolutely, Joe is correct. And council and staff, as we go through this process, we'll be looking at that and we will be doing what we believe is best. And that will be through consultation with you, the general public. That parking could be underground. What we know is that Beach Drive is at a level that is approximately 1.1 or 1.2 stories below Mosley or Main Street. So there's room for one level of parking without having to get into water. So that's one option. There's also options of parking structures that can be added. But at the end of the day, we are a municipality that makes our living predominantly off of tourism. And we need to make sure that we're prepared for tourists when they come to town to spend their hard-earned dollars. We'll figure it out.
Yes, right on. So now I have one more question for now, but I just want to mention, if you have any questions brewing in your mind, just put up your hand or, stand up. Jerry, let's go to Jerry. You got a question?
So I'm a cottager here. I've been here forever. And certainly enjoyed luxury of nice little property taxes forever. And I share what David said. I mean, even what we pay today or moving forward is just minuscule compared to the value that we receive. It scared the hell out of me when I saw this $60 million arena go up, hearing what it would do to my property taxes. But I also see a ton of development going in this town. Do you think that the development, the taxes we're going to get from this development will solve this problem with the arena? Or me as a taxpayer, should I continue to be really worried about what this $60 million is going to do, not only my tax bill, but to the health
Wasaga Beach.
Sure, thank you, Jerry, and it's a great question, and thank you for asking it. So, at the end of the day, what we know is that we just went through a very difficult budget session. That I will say was not easy for council, and I said it during budget time. You know, if budgets were always easy, anyone could be on council and anyone could make those decisions. We debated and we pondered, and staff worked hard. 8.6%, of which 4.3% is simply to cover the cost of the new arena library over and above the cost of the existing arena and library. So when we cut those off and we move everything over, all of those costs don't go away. So we will be looking at ways to reutilize those buildings, maybe consider whether or not we declare them disposable and sell them off. Who knows? Those conversations haven't been had yet. But what I can tell you is that even at 8.6% this year, and I can promise the people of Wasaga Beach, they're not going to see for the rest of this term another 8.6% unless something catastrophic was to happen in the world. But we had to make sure that we put those dollars where they needed to be now. And people said, well, can you not take 2% and pay it out of the reserve funds? And yeah, we could have done that, but that's a one-time fix. It doesn't carry on every year. So what does that mean? It means we got to find 2% more next year over on top of what we have to find for next year. And our goal on council is always going to be to keep those taxes at the lowest we can, but being prudent and fiscally responsible. You elected us to be prudent and fiscally responsible. And that doesn't always mean delivering the message we all want to hear. I'm a taxpayer in this community as well. I have several properties here. I'm not happy with an 8.6% tax increase, but I understand it takes money to make the world go round. With respect to the development, we have a ton of development. We've been the fastest growing community in the country. We are now in the top 10. I think we're the second fastest in the county, if not the province, outside of any major urban area or city. And we're going to continue to be there. People want to be here in Wasaga Beach. They want to be in this area. But having said that, even at an 8.6% tax increase, I think out of 16 municipalities in the county with 2 separated cities, so 18 municipalities, we are 5th or 6th from the bottom, the lowest tax increase or taxes being paid. And so, you know, we have neighbors who've had 10.79, one at 24.8. These are tough times, and there's a lot of municipalities out there with big eggs to crack with infrastructure and aging whatnot. So I don't think you're going to see, as a matter of fact, I can promise you, you're not going to see that type of increase again. Will development make up the difference? I think that development will make up the difference in time. You know, Bill 23 kind of changes how we look at that right now. And until we fully understand Bill 23, we really don't have the answer to that anymore. Always it has been that development should pay for development. So development charges are charged on every new home, and that's put into a reserve, and that's what helps to pay for the new infrastructure, the upgrading of infrastructure, the additional infrastructure, those types of things. Until we know exactly what Bill 23 means, tough to make that decision, but I think we're still going to be fairly safe there. And once that infrastructure is built and it's where we need to be, then I think you're going to see stability in tax levels. I don't think you're going to see unstable tax levels now. I think they're going to be in that 2, 3, 4% range. That's probably the average across the county, probably across North America. There's a lot of folks that believe you should be able to keep taxes at a 0% increase. But I think we all know that, I mean, we can't live on a 0% increase in our lives. Should we be doing zero-based budgeting, which means you start at 0 and go up or down? Yes, I've always believed in that. I campaigned on that, and my councils have always done that. Some councils start at 5% and then go from there. Zero-based budgeting is important, but to think taxes are going to be a 0% increase, it's not going to happen. And I will say, I, as well as everyone else in this community, has really, if you own property, I mean, we've gained a lot of equity, a ton of equity. And you said it earlier about your father. You know, there's someone crying or grandfather, someone crying with a loaf of bread under their hand. Is that the case or isn't it? I don't know. What I do know is that we have a lot of folks in this community, whether they own their own home and have gained that equity or not, they're struggling. We know it. We see it every day. We're seeing big city issues come to Wasaga Beach, and we're having to deal with that. So whether you have money or not should never be why council makes a decision. Council should be doing what you elected us to do, and that's making tough decisions that are prudent and fiscally responsible. And I stand before you today and say, that's exactly what I am confident this council will do.
Okay, let's go to Frank. And
Your worship, we all know that there's a lot of homes being built, a lot of people are going to move into them. Is there a plan in place to try and keep the money that those people could generate in town? We've talked before about clothing stores, even high schools, all these different things that I don't mean to digress. Just, is there a plan to ensure that people leave their money in Wasaga that are here?
Can you elaborate? What do you mean by
Sure,
a plan
well,
for them to
Main
leave
Street,
their money?
For example, Main Street. How important is it to have Main Street where it has those shops where people don't have to go, no offense to Collingwood, or no offense to Barrie,
Yeah.
no offense. But to keep that money here in town, and the fact that businesses support local government better than residences. That's where we have a problem. Joe's been my teacher on that issue, where commercial stuff has to happen, otherwise the tax base is a little weak.
Sure. So to that point, Frank, absolutely there is, and absolutely we will. What we know in Wasaga Beach today is that we are in a deficit when it comes to commercial tax base. We're at about 93.7, 92.8, 8% being commercial, the rest being residential. For a community to be financially viable and stable, the experts like to see that around 75-25. 80-20, 70-30, but 75-25. We've got a ways to go. And so when we look at the redevelopment of our beachfront and those businesses that will come to that area, when we look at the creation of a Main Street proper, we will be creating many more new businesses. And hopefully a lot of mom and pop type shops, boutiques, stores, restaurants, cafes. Not that I have anything against franchises. I'm a franchise operator myself, so I respect and love the fact that they're here. But those mom and pops who are going to have variety, they're going to have something unique that is not only attractive to our full-time residents but our visitors, and that alone is going to create a higher or less of a differential between residential and commercial. And why is that important? Commercial taxes are usually around 1.8 to 2.5% more than residential taxes. And those numbers vary. So that's important. And to your point, what does that mean? It means it brings more services to Wasaga Beach. You may have heard me say it before. We don't go and shop or dine in Collingwood or Barrie or wherever else because we want to, although we may. We go there because we have to. We don't have a choice. Wasaga Beach, 25,000 people. We now have more population in Wasaga Beach than our good friends to the west in Collingwood have. Yet they probably have 75, 80 restaurants, probably 30 or 40 casual fine dining. We have 15 and 1 casual fine dining restaurant. That's problematic. So absolutely, the plan is and has been for years now to create that downtown proper, redevelop the beach, lift that commercial tax base and give our citizens more service. And not only service then with and options for shopping and dining and so on and so forth, but we believe with that we can bring other government services. Why do we have to travel to Collingwood, Stayner, or Allenville, everywhere but Wasaga Beach to get our license or our WIP card? We need to work on that, and I can promise you we are. I've said it for many years. If you show me any municipality that does not have a Main Street proper, I'll show you a sleepy little municipality that has very little or nothing to offer its full-time residents. We need to fix that. It's a crisis, and we will fix that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ken and Frank. So we've got a couple of questions in the queue. Kathleen Caswell from Climate Action Committee has a question, but first, we had a question a little while ago. I think you may have answered it. Veronica Vesio Wrigley from Veronica's Flowers. She's asking, thank you for the information, Mayor Smith. Will additional lanes be added to Mosley and River Road West from east to west? I think you may have answered that, right?
We did,
The
yeah,
answer
that is in
yes.
the queue.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good. There's also a question from Jane Puccini for Wendy, but we'll come back to that after we're done talking to the mayor. So Kathleen Caswell from Climate Action Committee.
Thank you. And it is related to climate action. Thanks, Mayor Smith, for being here. So we are really pleased to see that one of the pillars that came out in your priorities was leadership in green initiatives. So just particularly, what has been done in the 7 months so far? Or what is the top 1 or 2 things on that list that you see happening like first and second?
Yeah, thank you, Kathleen. And first of all, climate action, I wish you'd do something with the climate in here. It's quite warm in here. That's the first action I'd like to see. So what have we done? Of course, it's one of our pillars in this council's priorities. There's really been nothing done in the past, and we're looking to change that. Climate, as you know, is a difficult subject. Different people have different thoughts and different ideas what climate change is. They have different ideas on what we should or shouldn't be doing. But what's the town doing? So the town is looking, first of all, we'll look to that new $60 million arena library. By the way, I want to say, we're all going to be very proud of. It is going to be a spectacular building. So there's no doubt about that. So when that building was built, originally, my understanding is there were some green things that were in place, conduits to the building, so as that they could have solar panels on the roof, so on and so forth, and that was taken away. So our plan is to now look at how we get that back there so we can improve upon the operation, because the costs of that building, arenas are just energy hogs. They're a must to have, but they cost a lot. And so we need to be looking at that. We have already implemented that newer small vehicles at this point that the town is purchasing, that we're looking to purchase more green vehicles, either 100% green vehicle or something in a combination. And staff understand that as we move forward, it's a council priority in everything we do to look at the climate when we consider it. So that's where we're at today. That's what we've done so far. 7 months. For some people, that's a long time. For council, for us, it's gone. And we've got, 3 years and 5 months left. And believe me, we count the days and the hours because it flies by. So as we look to move forward and do anything new when it comes to building, we'll be looking to be much more green than we have been. As we look to our vehicles, we'll be looking to be as green as we can be, as long as it works within the system. And I'll give you an example of that. We're probably not going to go out and buy a new fire truck that is 100% electric, right? Not today. Maybe that's coming down the road, but until we see something like that in operation and we know that it works and that it's reliable, it would be irresponsible for us to do that at this point, just because of the safety of the folks that live here. So we're looking at when we have developers come to town, what level of destruction that they may do. And I'm going to be the first to stand before you to say, look, we all lived all of our houses were in a forest at one time, right? And so to say we shouldn't be taking down any more trees to build houses, I'll be honest, I don't agree with that. But can we reduce the amount of trees? So stop clear cutting, absolutely, and we should, and I'm confident we will. So staff are looking at that. Right now, the focus, however, I'm going to be very honest with you, is always the green is always there, and the climate is always there, and staff are aware, council's aware. Right now, we're trying to get our official plan completed. So within that official plan, we will have different zoning criterias and changes that will help affect many things, but one of those being climate. And so when you all gave me a holiday in 2018, the town of Wasaga Beach was very close to having an official plan almost completed and updated. Today, we know that didn't get done and it isn't completed. So we've got staff working hard to do that. So we'll be implementing certain things there as well. And I can't get into the details because quite frankly, that's way above my pay grade. That's to the experts at town hall, but it'll all come back to council and we'll look at that. You're welcome.
Peggy?
Sorry, so are you saying, that the new library will be done in 7 months, or did I mishear that?
No, I didn't say that, but the new library we're hoping is going to be ready to be open for the end of the year
Okay.
or sooner. Arena and library. I was just mentioning that there was no conduit to that building currently that would handle what's required to put solar panels on the roof to help power that building. And so we'd be looking to how we're going to do that in future. Because again, those buildings, the energy that we spend there is just the carbon footprint.
Yeah, so by the end of the year.
If Kathleen knew the full carbon footprint, she'd pass out right here, I'm sure of it.
Hopefully.
Wait, okay, we'll give right back to you, Graham. Thanks, Peggy, for that. Gordon has a question and we'll come over to you, Graham.
Thank you, your worship. Just wondering what council's priorities are for having more parks, parkland, playgrounds for the public. As we're going into all these new subdivisions that are going in, as opposed to taking cash and money.
Yeah, so I can tell you that all of the new subdivisions that are on the books today have parkland dedicated. I'll give you an example. The Sunnydale Trails development has, I think, 2 or 3 parks in there, and including an outdoor ice rink for the winter, and that can be used for whatever in the summer. But any of those new subdivisions or developments have parklands dedicated. We are this year opening a new park on River Road East at Homewood. And what's the name of that street, Tanya? Homewood and
It was pretty much Homewood and, oh, I can't remember the site.
yeah, so River Road East at Homewood, as you go down to the beach, there's a property there. We're putting a new park there, and we've upgraded. Last year, they upgraded the park at the municipal building and I think at the Recplex. And we're upgrading some more parks this year. Before those developments, the new developments are completed, those parks will be in place so as that there are places for families to enjoy.
To supplemental, if I could, you keep on saying park and parkland, are many of these playgrounds? Or is it just open field?
Playgrounds, yeah, so these are true parks that the kids are gonna be able to go to and go on swings and so on and so forth. They aren't soccer pitches. We have a huge area out at the sports park for that, and then the diamonds are out there, and that's probably, I don't see us doing any of those in town for quite some time.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that question, Graham.
Hi, Brad.
Hi, Graham.
So since the last council did the arena without any funding from government, is there any opportunity to retroactive funding or on operation of it or anything like that? From the
You just
government?
repeat the question if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah, okay, David. So Graham's asking, the arena's been basically built solely on the taxpayer of Wasaga Beach without any funding, and is there any opportunity for retroactive funding from other levels of government? And what we have learned, and we've tried, what we've learned is it's just absolutely not. You apply for that funding before you start. If you get started, it's not going to happen. So what does that mean though? Doesn't mean we give up. It means we look at what else can we do in and around that particular complex that we may be able to get funding on that can help with the complex in its totality or nearby. And so I can assure you that we have a lot of pans in the fire right now. Council's patiently waiting to be able to come out and make some what we believe are going to be good announcements in time. But I can tell you this, if you think things move slow in the municipality, God bless the province and the feds. Those are big machines to move as well. So we have great relationships. We're building even better relationships at the provincial level, and the federal level, and we'll continue to do that. I'm a big believer that when it comes to moving our municipality forward, just like any business, it's about relationships. You have to build relationships up to be successful. You can't tear them down.
Just to add to what you're saying there, for example, you already mentioned about solar, correct? Is there a way to get anything whatever you want, right? I think that's where his question's going. Can you, I think.
Yeah, so if we decide that we're going to try and put solar panels across the roof of the arena, which is
They'll
constructed.
support me if I want to do it. I don't see why they wouldn't.
Right,
support it.
so if we do something like that, is there funding out there to go after? Absolutely. But I think you were talking
Correct.
about retroactive on what's currently there, and no, there isn't.
Okay, question again from Veronica Vescio Wrigley. There is limited commercial space, but there are spaces empty in town. How do we attract more, she said, mom and pop businesses? I mean, I think the key is to fill those spaces, period.
So that's a great question, Veronica, and thank you. And it's interesting because we had a roundtable discussion 2 weeks ago at the Wasaga Stars Arena, our active department, and we had a bunch of business folks come in. I think we had about 80 or 90 folks there. And at the end, of course, we, what do you like about Wasaga Beach and what don't you like? And this is from a business perspective. And so what we heard in the same, to the same question was part of the room say, well, we don't have enough business square footage and space in our community. And then two items later pulled out of the hat, we have too many vacancies. So, that's just so typical when you put 100 people in a room, what you come up with. Number one, the municipality only controls the rental space that we own. And I can tell you that the rental space we own down at the beach is 100% rented this year. We have no vacancies there at this point. So we've done our part. What the private sector does with rental space, a lot of factors there. How much are they asking per square foot? There are landlords out there that are asking square footage prices that you would see in downtown Toronto. Well, there's a reason why it's empty. We've got some experts in real estate here tonight that'll tell you whether it's a sale or it's a rental. If it's not sold or it's not rented, it's because the price isn't right. And that is no different here in Wasaga Beach. And so I believe we have adequate rental space today, unless you're wanting to do some massive building and bring a call center here, which we'd be happy to have and work with you on. But there is a vacancy and there is space. Council's job is to bring as many people to Wasaga Beach as we possibly can, winter, summer, spring, and fall. But it's the local business people's job to bring them in the door and to keep them coming back. Council has zero control over that.
Okay, at the Recplex a few weeks ago, when you and the council provided an update, I made an observation. You mentioned the RFP or RFI went out to Baylock, Zancor, Slate, and Fram. I was surprised that when you mentioned them and said, is there anybody here? There was only somebody there from Fram. Can I read into that?
I don't, you can do it. David, you're that. But I don't think you should. Listen, at the end of the day, let me make clear, Baylock and Zancor are one and the same. So 3 RFPs or three proponents, Slate Management, Baylock, Zancor, and Fram Building Group. Frank Giannoni from Fram was there. They were all invited. I can assure you of that. And they all indicated they were going to do their best to be there. But folks, we could read into a million things. What did I read into that night? Why was only Fram there and not the others? These folks are busy. I can tell you, life is busy. And so, I don't think it has any indication how interested they are or not interested. It was great to see Frank there, and I wish they could have been there as well. But I'm sure as we move forward and we get closer, you'll see more people around, and I wouldn't read anything into that.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so new entertainment area?
On Beach Drive.
Yes.
Yeah, so as you know, council kept their promise the day after we were elected. Process started to reopen Beach Drive the way it should be. And I can tell you to this day, I knew going through my campaign and even before that, how important Beach Drive is to the citizens of Wasaga Beach. We have the most beautiful sunsets in the world. And I, over the years, watched hundreds and thousands of people go down there and watch sunsets, winter, summer, spring, and fall. But I can tell you that even just today, again, every day, a member of council or myself get thanked for opening Beach Drive. That's how important it was. So we've done that. We will open it a little further, so we'll get that gate that's there opened again before the summer season starts. We're looking at the Wasaga Beach placemaker sign and where it is and whether it's going to stay there or not. Moving that is not an easy task, but we're looking at it and we'll do what we think is best and most safe. We've opened Beach Drive, but if you've noticed between 2nd and 3rd Street, so the last block, we haven't opened and we're not going to open that this year. We're going to leave it closed. We've taken all of the stone that was purchased and used to build the wall on the beachfront by the sidewalk. And we've repurposed that, so at very little cost. And in that 2nd to 3rd Street where they tore down our best buildings and closed our splash pad, we're using that stone to build something close to an amphitheater. So there's a couple of levels there for people to sit on and enjoy. Street will be closed. The stage
happening.
That's happening as we speak.
Oh,
Yeah, it'll be open for this summer. Our stage will often be set up down there so we can have larger concerts and whatnot in that area without having to close the whole road.
Excellent.
And then, of course, at the other end, we have a ton, our special events gals, Candace and Lisa and Heather are top notch at what they do. They're just amazing. They've worked really hard. We've got a lot of entertainment, a lot of exciting things happening this summer. And so that'll happen now both at the Main Street Mall, if you will, or the main end or Main Street and Spruce, as well as down between 2nd and 3rd. We'll have entertainment at both ends.
Okay, and upcoming date, 75th anniversary of the Wasaga Beach Fire Department is coming up in a couple of days, right?
Yeah, that's
June 3rd?
Yeah, June 3rd, this Saturday. And Fire Hall, I think it's from 10 until 2. Will be open for the public. There'll be displays set up there, not only by the fire department, by the OPP, paramedics and whatnot. It is the fire department's 75th anniversary. Listen, we had a great fire department day one, and we've got an amazing, great fire department today. As a matter of fact, I'm happy to say, if you haven't heard, just a month ago, our firefighters, a couple of our firefighters saved another life, brought someone back to life, and that individual is still with us today. So we're very proud of our firefighters and our first responders, our paramedics, our police officers. So get out there on Saturday, bring the kids. They'll be able to climb on an apparatus and maybe play with the sirens, the lights, whatever, but it'll be a great time and what a great organization to celebrate.
That's terrific. And it's Seniors Month. I don't know if this is a Canadian thing. June is Seniors Month. Seniors Expo is in town on June 21st.
Right.
Anyway, so.
Yeah, it's an annual.
Wasaga has a lot of seniors.
It's an annual event. We have a lot of great seniors. We have the Seniors Expo every year. This year is going to be another great event. So whether you're a senior or not, and you have some time, come on out. This year, we're going to have staff will have tables set up for questions, but we'll also have council in and around as well, if you have any questions. So we're about being open and transparent and available, and we'll be there. Should be a good time.
I tried to get a booth, but they were sold out, so I'm on a waiting list for next year. Carrie, you have a question?
Yeah, going back to a couple comments ago in regards to mom and pop businesses and trying to fill these spaces. What is council doing about that new store Fun Guys? Don't have site pages.
Yeah, so what I can tell you is that as soon as they opened and our bylaw department became aware of it, they immediately contacted the Ontario Provincial Police and started working with them to deal with this illegal business. The town of Wasaga Beach last Friday, once we got all the information we needed in our legal advice, issued orders for that business to cease and desist and close its doors for operating an illegal business. They haven't done that. I'm very happy to tell you that this afternoon, maybe even now, I think it's already been done, but we have acted on those orders and that business has been closed down.
No more fun for the fun guy. I don't know what's going on. I'm not gonna ask.
Yeah, no more fun for the
If
fun
it's
guys.
not legal, it's nothing to talk about. It's been dealt with.
What I will tell you is that I speak on behalf of council. This council will not tolerate this type of business in our community. We have a moral, ethical, fiduciary responsibility to our citizens, our visitors, and our businesses to deal with these types of entities when they come. This type of entity is clearly trying to change the legislation. And they have the freedoms and rights to do that. But they need to do it legally. And if you're going to run an illegal business in the town of Wasaga Beach, especially a business that is selling hallucinant drugs, we're not going to tolerate that. We're going to throw everything we possibly can at you to stop you. Today, I can tell you we've done that. Tomorrow, we'll see.
Okay, so that's the end of the fun guys. Wasaga Artist 50th anniversary, and I don't know if there's any upcoming events before we wrap up. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, so that was last Saturday was the 50th anniversary of the Wasaga Artists. Again, another amazing club and organization we have in the town of Wasaga Beach. Fitting here we are in this studio where the art's clearly melted and fallen off the walls, but they celebrated their 50th anniversary. Council was there to celebrate with them. It never ceases to amaze me the amount of talent that we have in this community. And so much so, again, in my last term of council, we did something very similar to what you have here throughout all of our municipal buildings. So as that our local artists could display their art. So if you're ever in a town building, all that art you see on the wall is art that has been created by the Wasaga artists and local artists. And so it's a lot of it's for sale. So if you see something you like, reach out to them and let them know, and they'd be happy to look after you.
Okay, awesome. So I just want to say that Mayor Smith, we really appreciate you being here, taking the time to answer all these questions. We have another question for Wendy, so maybe Wendy wants to come up and we can deal with one more question. But
David, thank you so
very
much. Appreciate it.
It's really appreciated. Thank you. Usually there is art here. Obviously, we just caught the gallery between show and exhibitions. Thank you, Michael Jarrett.
Took pictures on set.
Okay, wonderful. Wendy's back. So the question, if you can address this, how long is appointment as a state trustee taking in Simcoe County courts and Toronto courts? Was a question from Jane Puccini.
Okay, Simcoe County moves pretty fast, 3 to 4 months. In Toronto, it's a different story. They have much more population. I mean, their courts are bigger. I'm not sure. I haven't worked in Toronto for years, so I'm not sure how long it would take in Toronto. But I know in Simcoe County, it's like 3 or 4 months.
Okay, very good, very good. All right, well, thanks again, Wendy, and Wendy Donnelly and Andrew Brennan. So, yeah, anyway, so we're your sponsors tonight, Wendy Donnelly, myself, and Andrew Brennan. So please consider supporting us for your next business venture or whatever it is that you need assistance for. And there's still some appetizers and beverages, so feel free to hang around as long as you like and schmooze and chat and do whatever it is you'd like. And we'll be back next month. We're going to be talking about how to take a bite out of your mortgage by getting a secondary or possibly even a third apartment, because that is something that Bill 23 will allow. And we don't know everything, but we know that there's definitely some movement in that regard. And if you're somebody who's on the fringe or who may be somebody who could take on a tenant, We can help you finance it. We can help you do the construction, whatever is necessary. We'll bring in all the right people, even manage the tenant. So that's the end of next month. The month after that, I'm gonna be here with Jerry. We're gonna talk about apartment REITs, real estate investment trusts. So thanks again, everybody, for participating, Mayor Smith and all of you. And for you too online, thank you, everybody.